Basically, when it comes to proof of work, let's, I guess, first kind of understand, as you mentioned, Hope, I think that's a great point. Like, first off, like, what is proof of work and what is crypto mining essentially? So, proof of work is kind of what it says within the title. It's a proof that you've done some effective work, computational work for that matter. And to put it really simple, you've probably heard about like the concept of how bitcoins are made. They're made by people doing some kind of equations on their computer, and therefore giving them the right to mint new Bitcoin. And that's a little bit of a dramatically simplified version of it, but really what you're utilizing here with the Bitcoin network, and this is where the term blockchain comes in. With each block on the Bitcoin blockchain, each of these blocks is a metaphor for data that's being basically validated on chain. And that's why, again, you have the chain here. It's a ledger over time on the network where we're adding more and more data or more transactions. And we need to have a way to make sure we know that the information that's being validated is truthful, that there was a high degree of trust into what's being added on that chain. So the way that a Bitcoin block is created is that you have thousands upon thousands of these Bitcoin miners, or people who are effectively trying to have the right to create that next block, taking in existing transactions on the network that people are requesting. Bob wants to send one Bitcoin to Alice, etc. And once they're compiling that in, they have basically this data here effective within the block, and they want to get it validated on the network. And they have to basically find what's known as a hash. Think of it as a long string of numbers and letters to basically validate that they have done this proof of work. They put an economic cost into validating, these transactions, and have an economic cost in having authority in the network. Right? They've put an economic cost in the Bitcoin network. So that's a very kind of quick way to understand the steps as to why proof of work is so secure, is because of the economic cost that's going into it and how difficult it is to get this hash. And that's why there's thousands of miners across the world who effectively every about 10 minutes will get that hash, that proof of work effectively, that allows them to share with the network, hey, I've got the proof. It is cryptographically verifiable. There is no need for you to know who I am, where I am, how I got this answer. I proved it through work. And then once the network hears that, respectively, it gives them the ability to mine a block reward. So they basically are able to mine or mint new Bitcoin for that block. And every 4 years, that amount drops in half. So that's the really detailed view of proof of work. And the problem about it that most people see is that in order to do this and have this consensus and this really high degree of security, and people undoubtedly, whether they like it or not, can't deny that Bitcoin is the most secure decentralized network on the planet, hands down. And same with Ethereum as a second network with its proof of work. People say, on the other hand, that this is purely wasteful, that we don't need to be doing this because of the energy consumption, the hardware, or ASIC miners, as they're referred to as, this specific computer hardware and the energy input aren't really technically needed in order to have a very high degree of trustless security and validity of transactions. And people will usually point towards the alternative, which is POS, or proof of stake. And this is where the stakeholders of the network who have coins, so in the case of Ethereum, which is moving from proof of work to proof of stake, this would mean that the holders on the Ethereum network basically would get to confirm transactions. And the way that would work for Ethereum, as it's the second largest, is that they're going, you need a minimum of 32 Ethereum to run a node effectively. So it shows you have a big economic weight in the network. And due to your percentage amount of Ethereum being held on the network under your node, the more nodes you have operating, the more likelihood you have a chance to be picked as the next random validator who gets to validate what transactions happen on the network. So again, like proof of work, batching in those transactions that are waiting to be confirmed or validated, and basically validating them on the network if you're so choosing to do so. And proof of stake outside of Ethereum has been worked on and used by a lot of protocols. And to be completely honest, to all those who might be critical of proof of stake, with little to no issues, proof of stake has been working quite smoothly. But if you were to talk about, I think, a system, all the while, albeit it might have some more negative externalities than proof of stake, which is very green effectively, and that's the argument most people make against proof of work, is that why don't we just use proof of stake? Proof of work still has a higher degree of security by most security experts. If you were to talk to people in the crypto sector, again, those who are big on peer-to-peer networks and the architecture to maintain decentralization, most of them will argue, for better or for worse, proof of work is still a little bit more secure. So it's something up for debate. People have differing opinions on it, but as much as I like proof of stake, I don't think we're going to get we shouldn't force the Bitcoin network to merge to proof of stake through regulation and by force. I think it'll be very clear once Ethereum makes the merge to proof of stake that, hey, maybe this is the future. Maybe this isn't something that we can ignore. And Bitcoin, just like any decentralized network, is going to have to compete. It's going to have to do its best to maintain its spot as number one. And that's not always guaranteed. So maybe the bet on proof of work is going to be worth it. Maybe not. We're going to have to see through time. And that's why I think that both systems equally can coexist.